really interesting, but most of the women that have been coming into my life, and like you for sure, like I am so sure that in some other dimension, some other life, like we were Egyptian sisters, like
Yeah.
very deeply connected, living together in some temple, and we're being reunited to support each other in this dimension, in this time space reality. And I have these really interesting connections, and they're not a lot. Like they're like Janae, right, from New Life Ayahuasca. She's
Mhm.
another one. Like I saw her in a vision. I'm like, oh, we were lounging on this chase lounge in Egypt together. I'm like, oh, that's why we're so close. But the same with you. And I think you mentioned to me that you have a very deep connection with Egyptian mythology. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we, the panthers, the cats, the mystery, it's, so many different signs that we had with one another. So I definitely feel like there's a lot to discover within that lifetime. If we should get a chance to sit down and do readings on it.
We
I
should.
wanna take a look at that. Yeah. But before we dive into our topic tonight, I just wanna, have you talk about what you do, because I'm just so excited about what you have going on. And I want everybody to know how special your projects are and what type of work you do, because it's life transformational, and I feel like you save a lot of people too. So tell
It's a
me.
Thank you so much. And it's been a really interesting journey. And I don't very often like the assignment that I have at this stage in my life. As I've mentioned to you, like I'm like, really, really, is that why do I have to do that? Like, why do I have to, like, why is that my assignment? And so what I do is, I'm like many people out there. I did all the right things. I was a classically trained pianist, a champion equestrian rider, a straight A student, corporate America, go team, very structured, trained under all of the masculine people, Michael Gerber, Tony Robbins, landmark education. I can spreadsheet anything.
Yeah.
I I am
I know.
very deeply comfortable with a spreadsheet and very logical thinking. And I've started and sold multiple companies. I've helped people take companies to market, take them public. I've you know I I'm an avid investor. Like, so in the matrix, in the 3D world, by all accounts and purposes, I appeared to be very successful.
Mm,
And what I found was there was this deep um, longing, or like emptiness. It was like I had it all. I had the nanny, the housekeeper, the great business. I was working for A-list celebrities, and I'm like, is this as good as it gets? And I felt really shameful and really guilty that I didn't feel more gratitude for that. Like I had a lot of gratitude, but I had a lot of shame as well. And I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was having the first of a series of, midlife crises. I actually did have a bit of a nervous breakdown because like my mind would not shut off and I was just trapped in this loop. And so fast forward, it started me this deep rupture of anxiety and depression and a life-threatening disease, like so many people encounter as they're on the brink of awakening, or the rupture that leads to rapture is the thing that really set me on this path of awakening. And so what I do now is I have a fancy title, which is I'm an individual and organizational performance coach and consultant. So I work in the corporate arena, helping companies align holistically to increase profitability. However, what I really am and who I really am is I'm a woman that is serving truth, full expression, and the feminine. And I'm a teacher of the feminine. And one of the things that has come from this work with plant medicine is this instruction that we are to restore the equanimity and the reverence and the respect and the importance of the feminine back on the planet. And so we do that by starting with each one of us first. And so my focus right now is helping women understand the value of who they are and what they come with, and really being able to sit in their truth without any hesitation, that just by being in the room, just by being at that negotiation table, they don't have to say a word, and they can transmute energetically and affect change on a global scale if they're connected to their divinity.
Oof, powerful stuff. Yeah, you guys can visit www.alexisasbe.com and check this out for yourself. I can firsthand say that the work that Alexis does is absolutely incredible. And I really thank you for it, because I saw the transformation too. I got a chance, a glimpse of that corporate, and putting the holistic layer over that, which is so important right now in not just the corporate world, but really everywhere. Awakening is happening everywhere, individually, collectively, in the corporate world, in the smaller businesses areas, and just it's incredible to see. And having the tools to be able to navigate through that is so important, and it's instrumental what you do. And yeah, so much honor here to know you and see you do that. It's very inspirational, which brings us into our topic for tonight, is the awakening process for individuals, the collective, the corporations. I just want to really dive deep into this topic tonight with you, and kind of talk about our own journeys, and go from there, and kind of how we started to apply that not only in our lives, but help others to kind of navigate through that too. So you shared a little bit about how you got there, but tell me the things that people don't usually talk about, and that is the challenge that we face during the awakening process. And some people, I've I've seen people who actually give up and want to go back into that comfort zone right at the edge of that awakening. And there's a great reason for that, and that is the challenge. So would you mind sharing with us what you've gone through individually?
Yeah, it's a very vulnerable process, right? So when we want to affect change or make change, one of the things that I I'm always aware of, for myself, as well as the leaders that I work with and the companies that I work with, is that the fish stinks from the head down, right?
Mhm.
And so that means that if there's stuff that is going on within an organization or within a family, let's say, or even in a relationship, whoever is leading is probably predominantly responsible for the experience that they are having, as well as everyone else. And so the challenge, in my opinion, for me has always been, oh, if I'm having this experience and it's not an experience that is positive or for the greater good, I've got to look at my own shit, right? I got to look and see what is going on, what limiting belief systems, what ties, what hooks that I have, and deeply uncover those. And sometimes that's really hard, right? You know, I'll just give a little bit of an example. So earlier this year, I was really mad at my husband, right? I got really mad. It was around my birthday, and we've been together 28 years. So we know it's like, you think we got this stuff down, and we have an incredible love story. We met in the middle of nowhere on horseback. I mean, we've started, we've done work together, and here I am mad, right, at my husband on my birthday. So I book a plane ride at 8 o'clock in the morning to leave that night at 8:30 on my birthday, first class, by the way,
Mhm.
because I'm so mad at him, right? And I'm And I'm very aware that I'm the one that's mad and I still can't figure it out, right? And so the challenge of awakening is like, I'm like so pointing my finger at him going, oh, you've done this, like you're not blah, blah, blah. And I'm also having the experience. So I know that this is my experience and that there is something that I am participating in this dynamic. And, it was really interesting. What I got from going away was, again, not recognizing my own worth, my own value in this relationship. And it was really funny because it was around, I realized that I was really mad at him because I'd been asking or considering him in the idea of getting a dog. We haven't had a
Mhm.
dog since my kids went to college, and he was like, no, 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 I don't want a dog. And I'm like, okay, I understand, I get it. You want to be footloose and fancy free, and you don't want to be, have an animal attached. But I felt like this spirit wanting to be with us. And I wasn't present enough at the time to like really drop in. And I started to become offended that he kept saying no. And so after I left, I called him from Costa Rica and I said, oh, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not asking for permission, baby. And he goes, oh, okay. I understand. And I said, so if the dog jumps in my car or it happens to come along and it's the right dog, like or if I get that intuitive nudge to, to look in a certain direction, I just want you to know that there's a dog that's coming home. And he was like, oh, all right, cool, got it. I only had to go to Costa Rica because got so mad, but those are some of the challenges of awakening, is taking radical responsibility for my own shit, and the experience that I'm having and understanding what my role is in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually resonate with a lot of things that you just said around just, sometimes we become so unaware of our own triggers and our own wounds. And that is the process of awakening, is being present enough to observe what's happening, not judge it and not react. But I feel like through reactions, we get a chance to take a look at how it all plays out and how it affects us in a way. And you were lucky enough to have a husband who actually gets it. And sometimes it's challenging to be in a relationship and going through the awakening process where one person is, on one journey path, and then the other kind of is meeting you somewhere and then kind of going this way or the other. And I feel like that's, I'm not to say because I'm not in a marriage, but I can see how that could be challenging just to, you know, get yourself into that awareness without getting upset with another person for something that we have to take responsibility for.
Yeah. And, he was also triggered. He's like, she's going to come help me. Like, I think that he was slightly annoyed, but he was also like very aware that I needed to like just like clear my head and get into the
Yeah.
jungle again. And how important that is. That's one of the benefits when you're on the journey with someone or you have this divine partnership, right?
Mhm.
That partnership is a karmic tie, right? There's a karmic lesson. And like for us, man, I know that I would not have experienced the amount of joy or pleasure that I experienced without going through these deep ruptures with him,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that for him, he wouldn't be the man that he is without being challenged by a woman like me as well. And it's a lot. I mean, like for him, I mean, I can only imagine, like, I'm a lot, like, I intuitive downloads, I've been on this awakening path for close to 15 years when no one was really talking about it. And I'm like, I see pictures, I hear voices, and he's like, let's just keep that on the download, you know? And I'm sitting in a board meeting and he's like, can we not talk about the pictures that you get right now? Or maybe just say, what about this? And I'm like, no, actually, I can't. I actually need to say what's true for myself.
Yeah. And that's another a challenge in the awakening process is to stand up for your truth and what you are experiencing during this process. Because, yeah, I I feel like right now it's becoming more and more accepted in our world of, talking about the things that we talk about now, the plant medicines. It started with cannabis and then it went into the mushrooms and then the ayahuasca. And then we're talking about the spiritual beings and the ascended masters and the angels and so on and so forth. Back then, it wasn't really accepted, and I
Mhm.
feel like that's one of the challenges right now is to come out of that taboo and that stereotype of, having a mental illness and actually looking at it from has their own journey and their own truth. And it's up to us individually to also be very, um, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Aware of what we see and believe ourselves and trust ourselves within that. And so that trust and surrender into self is another challenge that I personally faced. I questioned a lot of things in the beginning of my awakening. I thought I was crazy. I thought I should probably be on medication like the society would want me to be. And I have a lot of people who ask me, they're just barely waking up and they're saying, I feel like I'm losing my shit. And this is a scary thing to lose the mind. This is the purpose of the plant medicine. I know for myself, and I'm sure for you too, is to be able to let go of that control of having that control over the mind things and surrender and actually allow yourself to see beyond that limiting mind.
Yeah.
That was a challenge for me.
Yeah, and losing
Um,
the mind is kind of a not something that people are super comfortable with, right?
yeah,
And what if, and I think though to awaken, we do have to lose the mind. We do have to access the higher realms, our body, our sensations, and signs and synchronicities, and our inner knowing. And in order to do that, we really do need to lose the mind.
absolutely. Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges. But speaking of like mental illness in the workplace, I think that a lot of people who are having mental illness are really having a spiritual awakening.
I absolutely agree with that. And there is that I feel like there's that threshold where, you're so bogged down by societal beliefs around the mental illness, where now you're experiencing things and you just lose yourself completely. You don't want to face it. And all of a sudden, yeah, you are walking around talking to entities outside and probably taking some drugs to kind of get yourself out of the fear mode too. Because it is scary. Awakening is not for the faint of heart. It's something that, you know, a lot of shaman and sha women and shaman would say for a warrior to take on. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just see a lot of it's so funny because my clairvoyance teacher would say, I was going through a phase of getting downloads too. So many downloads from different Council of Nine, Arcturians, and I was just asking my teacher, I'm like, if I didn't have someone to relate this information to, what would happen? Because this is crazy. What's happening? And he's like, well, you'd be the one walking around on the street talking to yourself. That's basically what happens when we don't have the guidance
Right.
from, either somebody who can help us or, have enough discipline and training for within ourselves to sit and meditate and get ourselves centered enough and grounded enough to look at it from that observer standpoint. And
Yeah.
I'd be curious in the workspace, like I know I see a lot of folks because I do consulting and I see a lot of folks within the workspace waking up too, and there's that, how do you handle that as an employer? Like,
In the, you mean when they're actually starting to have those inner knowings, or that
yeah,
sensation that is landing as truth differently than in the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually the way I handle it is I'm like, wow, awesome, welcome to the party. Like, perfect. We need all of you here. We need all of you at this. And frankly, when I'm working with leaders and they're like, they're like, well, she's a little woo-woo. I'm like, I think that might be a really big asset for you. That if you can invite all of this woman to play all of her piano keys as opposed to just one key, you're going to get a much more creative, productive, inspired team player than you are if they're just like, numbed out on some sort of, like anti-anxiety medication where they can't, where they're just like, putting pencils in a box. That is not what we want. We need at this time, we're like in the technology revolution. We need the most creative, integrated, integrous, truth-telling people, healthy, people working for us, solving big problems, because we have a lot of problems to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's on a micro and a macro scale, if we take a look at it. I am also curious, I just had a question. I'm trying to formulate it properly. So there's that flip side in workspace, and I have folks that work in environments that they're not quite fitting for where they are vibrationally or energetically, and they just question, do I leave or do I stay? So that is, I don't give advice to folks because it's something that you have to know within yourself. First you got to accept where you are and see where your heart resonates. But how do I guess I don't know how to formulate that question, but how do you handle something like that as someone who works for a corporation and you just don't feel like you're fitting in anymore and you just don't know and you're scared to go, outside of it, but at the same time you just can't because the
Yeah.
employer doesn't understand, or maybe there's that, you're a little bit cuckoo, you should probably what do you do in that situation? A lot of
I think,
people ask me that.
yeah, I think that's such a great question. And if what I hear you saying is, how do we handle the questioning, right? How do we handle the
Hmm.
questioning or the knowing of whether it's a good fit for the organization and for the team player, right?
Right.
And I think being really transparent is, as a leader and a boss and an employer, if I had an employee that was struggling, right, I would want to have a really transparent conversation. I don't want to fit square pegs into round holes. I don't want to morph, it's like having a flower, for example. If the flower isn't producing or isn't blooming in the container that it's in, we don't change the flower, we change the container. And so that's the first thing, is building leaders that actually think like that understand we don't change, we don't want to change the flower. We really need to change the environment. And however, for the team member, because there's like real world stuff, like you got to pay the bills, you got a family to support, those are hard things. And I'm with you. I agree with you 100%. It's not my decision. It's really aligning them in a way that they feel truth, that they feel the courageous discipleship that needs to happen within that process.
Yeah. I will share my story with how I got out of, an environment or that container I wasn't quite fitting in. And the advice I gave myself back then is to not jump, but to allow things to make me jump. And not in a way where it's destructive to the company or myself, but more of from that energetic point where you have to get in tune with your heart and see what it is that your heart desires. And there's so many questions that need to be answered. And when we get ourselves into that container in our mind where we want to be, what we feel that's right for us, I feel the circumstances change organically. It doesn't have to be destructive process. That's just from my personal experience. Now, it did get crazy for me personally when, I decided this is the industry, our lovely cannabis industry. I didn't quite want to be there anymore because it changed. It went from something that's medicinal to now where everybody's making money and it's getting to that corporate, um, corrupt corporate. I don't know. I'm trying to be careful with the words, but corrupt corporate world. And I felt like there's something that doesn't feel right when I was there. And the moment I realized that for myself, and the moment I realized that I actually chase that dream not for the right reasons, it was more from that place of a wound of wanting to have things to be comfortable and not struggle. Because I grew up personally in a tough situation in Russia. And so I had that, background drive of making it happen because I don't want to be where I was when I was a kid. And I realized that and I had to work on that particular wound. And the moment I nipped it, I started to see those circumstances change. And I am here now where I am passionate about what I do. And I can actually bring that energy now back into that other world that I was in and make it a different world for myself and I'm sure for others too.
And that's the alchemization, right? Is
Yeah.
when we heal, we alchemize situations and we can solve problems differently than we can with our wounded self. And I think that's the benefit and the hope for humanity to awaken and to really understand the multidimensional cosmic beings that they really are, that they're not just this skin suit that we have like come into the world in, right? Like we are
Yeah,
not our thoughts. Yeah.
exactly.
I love that you're in that industry though, because we need good stewards for the medicine, right? We need good stewards that are brilliant as well as really integrous, asking questions that will provoke people's hearts in a way that um, maybe will steer it in a different direction. I have a belief about cannabis. I believe cannabis and all plant medicine, frankly. I really believe that the plants have come forward to help us awaken, right? They've
Mhm.
come forward. They're like, hey, we want to make ourselves available to you so that you can help save yourselves and us, but it's a collaborative approach, right? And I think that I don't believe that cannabis is going to be highly profitable for anybody or any corporation that is abusing it, right?
Yeah,
There has to be like a mission and a really good intention behind it. Like I'm thinking there are some companies that are trying to get uh, cannabis to, for example, and really trying to change um, legislation around that. Really needs sense to this.
yeah,
And currently it's not federally legal. And so I think those kinds of companies are probably really stewarding this medicine really well. And that's my hope for this industry. And also
yeah,
for people like you who, you know the industry really well and the power of plants, but the plants need advocates and shamans and medicine women that are speaking truth and remembering the sacred. And that goes to the feminine. Again, the feminine has to be revered on this planet. And we are in a big pendulum swing, in my opinion, right now.
absolutely. It's just watching how like pendulum is a good one or like the scales. I'm a Libra. I'm referring back to scales all the time.
Libras in my life, like you, Aqua, like half my clients, like, what's the deal? Like, how do I get all you Libras in my life?
we bring the balance. Or sometimes the opposite, the indecision.
You guys don't like to talk about conflict, though. You guys don't like conflict.
No, no. I would rather say, yes, you're right, and kind of sit there and boil in my own.
It's really funny.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
man, you tell the truth, watch everything change. I'm fascinated with it. I have this one client that's like, she's a Libra and she's very, very powerful. And when she manifests and she starts speaking the truth, it's like she could say, like, I'm like, look, we really need to get a white feather, right? We need a white
yeah,
feather. She's like, no, we don't. We don't need to talk about that. Let's not talk about the white feather. And then all of a sudden she's like, we need a white feather. I'm going to get a white feather. All of a sudden, boom, white feathers appear everywhere. It's like that kind of fast for Libras.
yeah, yeah.
Getting you guys to like,
We're magical creatures.
resistance or conflict.
Yeah. Awakening, yeah, even through industries collectively and relationships and just the whole planet. We're seeing that happen so much faster right now with everything that's going on. A lot of the things that are happening can be labeled as scary. I think it's a beautiful thing what's going on with everybody. I know my awakening process personally has been really intense. It's like a ceremony in its own, like a medicine ceremony.
Yeah, like an ongoing medicine ceremony.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I made it through that one, and then whoa, I didn't know.
Another one.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's a layer by layer. It's never, if you think you're enlightened and you made it, you've ascended, you have another one coming because it's a layer by layer thing. And we're not doing this just for ourselves individually. We're also doing this for the collective. So there's a lot of work to do. And once you step into that arena, once you are going through that awakening process, don't stop because it is absolutely incredible. Being aware of the journey, I think, is the greatest gift that we can have on this planet. And on the flip side, as you guys may know, I teach quantum, and that is something that we get to learn in the physical. So, when I don't want to say death, but when we leave this planet, we go back to the source and we see all the possibilities. And we're like, oh, dang, I wish I could have used that, and created something for myself through using the quantum structure. And I feel that it's so fascinating. And it's part of the awakening process, being able to realize the amount of power we have to create. And, a lot of people will say, well, quantum is so complicated and it's, hard to grasp. It's really not. And any spiritual teaching is really a quantum practice. Any practice, even what you're doing, that's a quantum practice. That's something that you do to manipulate energy, to change structures, to remove structures and put them back together. The matrix, that's another thing I actually wanted to talk to you about. A lot of people talk about the matrix and how bad it is, but we're in the matrix now. Even when we're outside of it, we're actually in another matrix. It's constant matrix. If we're not, we're done. We've ascended. We're back to the source, and then when we incarnate again, we're back in the matrix. But the question is, which matrix do you want to be in? What do you want to create? And how flexible is it for you?
The matrix that I, and it's funny that you're asking this question because, people are like, well, what's going to happen? And I really do have this interesting theory about the matrix. And there's going to be people who are living in what I would call like a virtual reality, right? Where machines and technology are really running them. And they become part of that iteration of the matrix. And then I believe that there's this other version, right? This awakened version where we are here on a 3D level, right? But we are using the principles of like quantum reality and energetic exchange and creating more of a utopia here on this planet and really co-creating with the planet. We're species like of this planet, like we're the inhabitants of this planet, and this planet is going to eject us if we don't get our shit together,
Yeah,
right?
it's already doing it.
And through illness and through all of the stressors. But I really do feel like we are, it could be a really beautiful utopia to like interact with nature and the planet and Mother Earth and spirituality in a way that we actually haven't, and I should probably say that we haven't experienced in the last few hundred years. I think in the ancient times, they were absolutely interacting and creating that reality. And they were very aware, but they didn't have all of the things that we have now. So we have all of these other distractions that have come into play to distract us from our truth. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I get it a lot. People are like, what's going to happen? And I'm like, I want to be on the utopia team. I want to be on the team that is the I want to be with my tribe of people who are actively co-creating with the universe.
Yeah. And when we do connect with those people and we co-create that utopia we're talking about, we change timelines. We don't experience the trials and tribulations of the modern world and all of these political things and things that are happening that people talk about on the mainstream media. It's, I had quite a lot of people ask me this question too is, well, how can you ignore all of the things that are happening and live in this utopia? I believe, and I've personal experiences, you just don't experience it. You just don't see it. It doesn't exist, and it's hard to explain. It's something that we create in our own reality. So yeah, it's so important to for me, it was important to be by myself and get into my own being to start creating because I was in an environment where couldn't connect with a lot of folks that were on the same page. But if you have that opportunity to be around people who are on the same page of creating that beautiful world, don't miss that opportunity and do not go back into that comfort zone that you're trying to get out of because once the door is open, it's like kingdom of heaven is right there. So just gotta walk through and not be afraid of that awakening process.
I don't know about you, but do you ever feel like what you're trying to do is like create heaven in business?
Yeah, all the time.
I do
Yeah,
too. I feel like I'm really trying to bring spirituality into the corporate arena and into people's lives and bring, and that's really the thing that brings meaning, right? Um,
yeah,
creates the best missions, it creates the most extraordinary visions um, and intentions. And I really, my hope for people is that they enter into their lives that way as well, their families as well, their relationships, that they hold this, like, like you and I, we have a divine connection. We hold this union, this friendship is sacred.
yeah,
And no time ever passes between us.
yeah,
That is where I'm hoping that humanity can actually return to.
yeah. The world will be a beautiful place, and it already is when you
Mhm.
think about it.
Mhm.
So beautiful topic today. I'm so grateful to have you tonight to
We should
talk
talk.
about these.
We should just talk like every week about something. Like I think our conversation before we start recording was hysterical.
I know, I know. I was like trying to find because I can't see. There's all this light. Like I need to record this right now. This is actually a podcast already. Oh, the Sananga topic. Oh my gosh. I can't. I think we should talk about the plant medicines because not a lot of people know what questions to ask, or who to ask. I struggled with that in the beginning. I kind of fell into it, and typically people do, but it is good to have that information too, because I feel like you and I are veterans of medicine at this point.
I didn't really fall into it. I didn't really see my life being, all of a sudden, I, I, I'm not, how do I say this? I really, if I was to like sort of snapshot what I thought my life was going to look like, it wasn't a life of like, going to the jungle and researching indigenous plants or herbs or healing myself naturally or meditation or all of these holistic approaches to life,
Mhm,
or sacred sexuality even. Like I really didn't see that coming. And, the way it came for us and, in my family was we have a long history of addiction in our family.
mhm,
We started to notice it come into our own immediate family, and that was the deepest rupture. It was a denial at first, and then we became very aware that we needed to address this. And so I think for some people it's really important to say that that they may not fall into it. They may not realize that this challenge that they think is happening to them, right? Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a husband or a wife that has, an alcohol or substance abuse addiction, or even a work addiction. God knows I had a work addiction. That plant medicine is a really beautiful tool if you feel called. And for me, I didn't feel called initially. My husband felt called. We sold a company and he was like, I'm not right. Like I'm still not finding joy. And I thought that if we sold this company, that I would be like free to be happy. And he, he had asked me, he said, would you go do ayahuasca with me? And I'm like, no way. I have kids in college. Are you crazy? No nonsense. Like you go, whatever you need to do, and after seeing his incredible transformation, uh, and my guy is not like, I think this is important to say, he's not a guy that sits still very well. So he's not going to be the guy that sits in an AA meeting, although I do think that AA is very beneficial for people, and I'm not dissing on it. He's not the guy that's going to sit in an AA meeting and drink coffee and go every single day, and work that program. He's
mhm.
not in his DNA. And so having this resource that freed him so much was such a powerful thing. And like when he got off the plane and my son saw him, my son who was 19 at the time, he just started weeping. He's like, what happened to you? He could tell energetically that something had been removed from him.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And then, a few months later, I started to feel that call, kind of like how when you started talking about Sananga, I'm like, what'd you say? What's that? Like, felt that
It burns.
you can feel the pull in your body. It's like, it's kind of
Yeah.
like when you're attracted to someone and um, you feel that like that sort of heat that's in your body. It's this
Mhm.
very deep longing. It's like, oh, I need to pay attention to what Nuri's saying about this medicine, because there's something in my energetics that is really drawn to this. And I should probably look a little deeper as to what that is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. My story was a little bit different. I was doing compliance work for the Native American tribe, and in order for me to start doing the work for them, I needed to make a decision to participate in a peyote ceremony. And so that was kind of it was a decision that was based on, you know, I needed to get that contract turned into I need to change my life, because besides addiction, that was one of the things that I had to work on too. besides addiction, there was that self-worth, the shame and the guilt and the stuff that we don't even know exists within ourselves, and we act and behave a certain way because of that. And so within one night, I started to see that it's now the doors are open. I gotta go in. And so I started with my plant medicine journey there through just again falling into it out of nowhere. I didn't know anybody who's done it before. I never talked to anybody who's done medicine before. I didn't even know what peyote was. I was just like a cactus, whatever, I smoke weed.
Yeah,
Sure.
about 8 years ago, I started teaching in the circle, which I had researched indigenous work, and circle work. The indigenous is really originated out of indigenous tribes, Native Americans, third world countries. The circle was where all the problems got solved.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why I was so drawn to that, but I think, something that I would say to people listening right now is like, pay attention to the things that don't make sense. Pay attention to things that are like pulling at you. There's deep wisdom there for you. And teach this circle work that that I've been teaching, and now it's all over the place. Now it's in Fortune 500 companies, and they're really seeing the value of people collaborating in a circle process, which I think is really beautiful, because I think the more contribution and collaboration that we can have, the better it's going to serve the greater good.
Yeah. Agree.
Pay attention, man. Pay attention to those things that don't make sense. They're divine downloads, and we as a culture have tagged them as maybe crazy or too much or taboo, and to not talk about them.
Yeah. That's key. And that key opens a big door that can change someone's life for the better. It may look scary in the beginning. It was so scary for me. Like, oh, now I don't know what to do. I see all these things that don't serve me, and how can I leave all this, and how can I change? Yeah, those questions will start.
Oh boy, awakening.
Here we go, dive deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I was always told that I was too sensitive or too much, right?
I was the opposite.
Mm.
I didn't talk about my feelings. I was always closed off. So I was like in my shell. This is like this is a lot for me, just being out there, out here talking about these things. So that was the opposite for me.
That's so funny, because I don't think that I would have imagined that about you. Like, I felt you immediately, and to think that someone like you would actually have insecurities or be like closed off is, it's so funny, right?
Oh my gosh, I was so insecure. I mean, I won't even start listing all the insecurities I had to work on and through my awakening process, but it's and nobody would know. I always had a mask on. I always had that faux confidence on, and I'm, walking around thinking I'm the shit. And, you know, then you realize some of the habits, some of the behaviors, some of the, you know, I'll get into plastic surgery later, but some of those things, there's something deeper within that.
Yeah.
And pay attention. What is it trying to tell you?
Oh yeah. Shoot my face up with Botox when I was 35 years old. Like, why was I doing that? You know,
Yeah.
because I thought that I needed it, or I don't subscribe to that anymore, because first of all, it isn't part of my truth, and I don't have any judgment about other people, and it's not a contest. But for me, I'm not putting any more toxins in my body. I'm not shooting my face up with a toxicity,
Hmm.
and I'm going to I'm going to age, I hope, tomorrow's another day. Age like nature. I'm going to age as the feminine. And I think that this culture really has this really bad setup for the feminine, that we are not supposed to age, right? But if you look at nature, a tree, it comes into its full glory. The older it gets, the more mature it gets. And I want to be an example. I want to be that embodiment of the feminine that is truth, because the feminine tells the truth.
Yeah.
And so that's just one part of my journey. But every day, Nuri, I'm like, oh, right here. I want to get Botox right there.
It just starts with that. That's where I was. It starts with that, and little bit by little, I started to, that's how people go too much, I feel like, because you don't I couldn't see that I was doing too much, and then I got the boobs and I got the shots, and it becomes something that you can't even be aware of. It's like addiction, like just like anything. So I had to reverse a lot of this stuff, and it's painful, and a lot of the damage that we do to ourselves is permanent, that we don't think about it during that moment when we want to look pretty. But who are we doing that for?
Who are we doing that for?
Exactly. Not ourselves, because without it, nobody sees me. I'm fine. But when I go out there back then, it's like, oh, I got to look a certain way to fit in.
I will say that.
Why?
Right. I will say though that one of the really beautiful things about this process is it's had me question everything, right? It started to really have me question what I wear, why am I concerned or don't like the way, I might look, or that I have a wrinkle. It's like, maybe I'm supposed to have a wrinkle. I'm supposed to age, and it's part of nature. And, um, that's been a really revelatory process for me as well.
Yeah, and it's wisdom lines, I call them, because I have the same thing.
And challenging. That's a challenge about a weight thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So that's that awakening. 2023. So I just want to conclude our podcast tonight with Happy New Year's to everybody, that calendar new year that we all celebrate. I think a lot of people kind of take it bad and good. Some spiritual folks talk about how the New Year's is a fake thing, and I personally like it because it kind of forces me to, get into that motion. But we had a hell of a 2022. I'm sure a lot of people have gone through a lot of turbulences. 2023, if anybody's following astrology, is going to be absolutely eye-opening, incredible. On January 23rd, this month, we're actually going to propel forward with whatever projects we were working on for the last few months. So if you feel a surge of doing something, go for it. It's something that's going to be successful. And yeah, it's going to be a really wild ride.
I'm so glad you're teaching astrology, because I think that we should pair astrology with everything that we do. Like, we just open
Absolutely.
our calendars so that we can actually work with the energetics of the planets. And that is one of the side effects, I should say, at least for me, of awakening, is how I'm like, what's going on right now? Why do I just not feel like January 1st is a new beginning? Right.
Yeah.
Like I love the math of it, right? I love that it marks time, but I feel like first of all, that full moon was really like, it started to shift. That's when it started to shift for me. It was
Yeah.
6. But I do feel like the mark of the Lunar New Year and this next new moon that's coming up feels like we're moving, like it's starting to get going again. But like, I noticed that in my own body, I don't really subscribe to the calendar. I really feel it more energetically in my body and align with that a lot more. And so it's funny. we talked about this months ago about how we both were not feeling like we should be doing anything or like
Yeah.
launching anything, releasing anything until afterwards. And it's that setup, that patriarchal setup in our head. We gotta go January 1st, like let's do
Mhm.
that, and you were like, nope, shouldn't do anything until after the 23rd. And I'm like, yeah, I totally feel that.
Yeah, and I've tried certain things too. I'm like, I'm not gonna follow my own advice. I'm just gonna do it. It failed miserably. So I'm like, okay, it's time to just relax. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who use astrology and all these spiritual teachings and Mayan calendars. They actually do work. I do believe that it's very beneficial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And
So,
when we had, when it was funny, my husband, when we had a couple big companies, and he's like, I'm like, no buying any electronics. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because Mercury's in retrograde. I remember one time he wanted a new truck and he was really excited about it. And it came and I'm like, you can't pick it up. You can't take it until after Mercury's out of retrograde.
yeah.
Dealers with all these, macho guys, and they're like, why can't you take the truck? And he's like, um, because Mercury is in retrograde. And they're looking at him like, where's the punchline? He's like, no, seriously, it's a planet thing. And my wife, is said, no, we can't take it. You'll get a lemon. Like he's like, I can't risk it. Like I live with her.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Kelly. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah, well, I got into an accident during Mercury retrograde, and when I was telling my clairvoyance teacher, I'm like, "Yeah, I got into this accident, what can it mean?" And I'm trying to find all these answers, and he just, like, simply looks at me and goes, "Mercury is in retrograde." Like, "Oh, that's right."
Yeah. And it's not like we're not supposed to do anything while it's in retrograde. It's a really good time to reset, revisit, rest, restore,
Yeah.
reorganize. Um, I love purging during retrograde season. It's like renew.
Mhm.
I think it's always good to like sort of go back and look or reset anything. And Kelly's actually traveling during retrograde. All of his flights were delayed.
Oof.
And yeah, fortunately, everything went smoothly, but that whole Southwest crash happened in retrograde at the same time,
Mm.
and they canceled
Wow.
all of those flights. So, and basically their whole technology system went down. But those are the fun things that we get to play with, using all of these tools that we've been disconnected by. And for all of the Christian people that are all freaked out about horoscopes and astrology, I always say the three wise men found the Lord and Savior himself by following the stars and the moon,
Yeah.
right? I think that there's something that we should be paying attention to.
Absolutely. I mean, these tools are here for a reason, and as long as you don't do or use them for to harm someone or yourself, they're there for a reason. It's the intent and the energy behind it.
Yeah.
So,
And our most religions have been, is a variation of fertility and, paganism, basically, the study of nature.
yeah, agree. Alexis Asbe, everybody. I think we're at our 1 hour, a little bit over, but I can talk to you forever on all
I
of
know.
these topics, and I think we should do it every week. I enjoy talking to you, and I feel like a lot of our conversations are so epic. We should just start,
Yeah,
sharing these thoughts with everybody.
I really do feel like we are every woman out there, right?
Yeah.
Every that thinks that she's the only one struggling with insecurities, but then having these deep intuitive thoughts like, am I crazy? And
Mhm.
I think bringing voice to that is so important. We need to learn how to collaborate and support each other, and conversate about these things, even in the messy parts. Um, so yeah, I love being with you. So when are you coming over? Come over soon.
Let me put my shoes on. I'm coming soon. I can't wait.
Your room,
So say that again.
your room is ready whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I can't wait. I love your guys' just aura energy. Can't wait.
So you
So
have,
you guys,
right? You have a new astrology class coming up. Is that correct?
I do. I have a teacher for it because I'm slammed with the quantum and the alchemy. I'm still launching that. I haven't had the time to launch both classes yet. And astrology is that I feel such an important thing to learn that I'm going to have available. The classes are going on now, so you can get one-on-one, you can get your readings done. Um, a really good friend of mine who's been doing astrology for a really long time, been trained by this woman who's been doing it for over 40 years, I believe, something really long. She's doing incredible readings and she actually helps me on my day-to-day, I'll call her, "Hey, can you tell me, should I be making this purchase today?" And I feel it's instrumental and I find it very useful for myself to, have that foundation to look at what's going on astrologically. And yeah, the quantum classes are starting and Alexis, I know you have a lot of programs going on, and also I know you retreats too. I don't know your schedules for retreats for this year, but I'm sure there are gonna be some
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah. Do you want me to talk about that you at all?
If you have them already solidified, why not?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't have the only offering I have right now is the assignment that I originally talked about that I really wasn't super excited about doing, which is what I've been gestating for the last year, as I feel like I've been pregnant with this download of what is coming next, and
Mhm.
that is sensual empire, and that is the teaching, the ancient teaching of the feminine. It's the embodiment of the feminine alchemy and abundance, and really foundationally being able to transmit this information to women so that they can actually learn how to trust the feminine themselves again is really critical. And so
Mhm.
that's the first offering. And this is a big deal for me because most of the time I only do corporate or privates, and I've been instructed to do this teaching so that it can reach the masses and be very affordable. And so that membership for women is only $99 a month. And so I'm inviting women, and that begins at the end of this month. And then we've just decided, I haven't even put this on my website or anything, but if women sign up for the queen level, there's going to be a retreat at my private ranch, an intimate gathering of other queens in the spring, where we are going to do the physical embodiment and gather at the ranch. And that's an additional like $3,000 value. So that's happening. And then I'm working with a woman named Alicia Holmes, who's this incredible woman who her initiative is to create I believe 1,000 women of color millionaires, and she's doing it actively in crypto and the metaverse and investing, and she's a finance expert. She happens to be one of my clients that I've been working with for the last 2 years, and we are doing a retreat in Puerto Vallarta, a luxury retreat, and it's all around sex, love, and money. And my realm being sacred sexuality and how it relates to business and abundance, and hers being finance and investment. And so the retreat is actually called Fucking Money.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, creative feminine energy. That's powerful.
I was speaking into Zoom, and she actually happened to be one of the retreat attendees, and we were on a bus, and she's like, I'm really feeling like I want to do, collaborate with you. I'm like, well, let's do it then. And she goes, well, what would we, what do you think it would be on? And I'm like, well, I want to talk about sacred sexuality because, that's the most potent force on the planet. And that is like such a man, like that manifests, right?
Mhm.
Like, and she's like, you want to talk about fucking and I want to talk about money. I'm like, there it is, fucking money. And the
It's
bus,
perfect.
like, it was like, that's it. Everybody wants to go to fucking money and toilet. So
It's amazing.
I believe that's going to happen May 17th. That will probably sell out almost instantly. So yeah, so definitely
Yeah,
message me or hit me up with an email if you're interested, and I'll get that information.
perfect. Yeah. Again, www.alexisasbe.com. I'm gonna link all of these um, links down below on the description within the video.
And I think that what you're teaching, Nuri, about quantum and intuitive knowing and clairvoyance is critical right now. We can't trust what we're getting from the media. In fact, I don't even want you to trust everything that comes out of my mouth. I want people to trust their inner guidance, because that truth is what's going to create a new world, right?
Yeah.
So it's so important, the work that you're doing. It's so important that people understand and learn these practices that we've been, sort of distracted out of. And so I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing and continue to do.
Thank you. Thank you. You're an inspiration. So thank you, Sensei. Well, I look forward to doing this again with you, and I thank you for your time tonight. I know it's hard for us to get together these days, but I'm so grateful that we did, and I hope to see you soon in the physical form and see your doggy that I haven't seen in the the story is absolutely perfect. Where's Luna? I don't see her back there.
Here by my feet and sleeping. She's been mad because dad's been gone. So she's been
That's his dog now, huh?
right. I'm more upset that she's mad that he's gone, or if she's tearing paper up, but she's actually
That's funny.
great. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love you so much. Thank you so much for the work. Thank you for your courage to do what you're doing, and to break out of the paradigm that so many people are struggling with. I think that we can only make ourselves proud and live by example, and that's the most effective way to affect change.
Thank you. I love you so much too.
Thank you, babe. All right, have a good night.
You too.